Welcome to this morning's webinar. Thank you very much for joining us. My name's Mike. I'm here to introduce Alberon, who we are, what we do, and then we'll jump straight into this webinar with my colleague James McDowell, our senior Microsoft consultant here at Alberon. So just to do the quick introduction. Good morning. We're Alberon, a target integration company. We opened back in 2006, based in Oxford. So we've been around for going on 17 years now. We're specialists in bespoke software development, web application development. We design and build websites for our clients, both marketing and e-commerce based websites. And we also provide hosting, maintenance and support services for any software that we build or any websites and emails that we might host. And like I said, we're also part of the Target Integration Group since August last year. So just going into a bit more depth about our services, obviously software development, as I've already alluded to, web design development, managed web hosting, software and web support and training, and more recently with James joining the business and other people that have worked with us, we're SharePoint consultancy as well, helping clients to design and develop SharePoint intranet sites and document management systems. Just a few of our happy clients. Most of them are Oxfordshire based, few a bit further afield, and just a number of case studies that you can find on our website at worldwideweb.alberon.co.uk. A bit of work that we've done there for Jesus College, a University of Oxford college, on bespoke web design and development, and a web design development project that we did with the Rosalind Franklin Institute. Also, you'll find a few case studies on the work that we do around SharePoint, some good work we did for Drax on guidance, SharePoint and governance and developing structure, and some more work with University of Oxford College, Hertford College, on a bespoke web-based software management system linked into SharePoint development as well. So why would you choose Alberon? Like I said, we have over 17 years of experience. Provide expertise and sound advice. We're very technology agnostic, so we're quite open. We're to all different types of technology, whatever technology best suits a solution for our customer. We can provide business insights and business analytics to gather requirements and really consult on the best way forward. And obviously we provide in-house technical support as well. So if any of that is of interest to you, please do reach out to us. You can drop an email into hello@alberon.co.uk, give us a call, and we quite happily welcome you into our office in Headington for a coffee and a chat. So thank you very much, and I think we'll move on into this morning's webinar. So, James, do you want to give yourself just a brief introduction to everyone that's joined us today, just so they can get an idea of your background and what we're going to be talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. So, good morning, everybody. My name's James McDowell. I'm the senior Microsoft consultant here at Alberon. So my Microsoft experience, so I've been a SharePoint administrator since 2011. That started on a legacy version of SharePoint on premises, SharePoint server. But I've been using Microsoft 365 since around 2016. And that's the full range of applications, for everything from SharePoint to Power Apps to some of the other features and functionality within Microsoft 365. So my role at Alberon is really to either help organizations who have 365 and are not sure they're getting the most out of it, or they want to learn a bit more, or even taking organizations of varying sizes from introducing 365 and actually rolling it out completely across their organization for whatever purpose that is to meet their business needs. So that's kind of my my core remit at the moment.
Brilliant, fantastic. And you joined Alberon, is it coming up 6 months ago? Is that right?
April.
Okay,
Deal.
April.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we're not far off the 6 month point.
No, getting there.
Getting there. We're getting there. And when you joined Alberon, we were in a bit of a transition ourselves, weren't we? In terms of we'd been using Google Workspace, all the Google apps, Google Drive, and we'd taken that decision as a business to sort of transition from using Google to Microsoft 365 and SharePoint. So, I mean, just to set the stage, can you briefly explain the core features of Microsoft 365 and SharePoint that make them appealing for, small businesses, medium businesses, I mean, enterprise businesses, obviously?
Yeah, so Microsoft Office, which it was previously called in various iterations, has been around for an awful long time. So it's something people are really familiar with. Word, Excel, PowerPoint have almost become synonymous with those applications that they actually are. They're almost buzzwords now. Obviously, Microsoft has evolved that product to what we find now, which is Microsoft 365, which is on a subscription service. But it's something that organizations have been using for a long time. Like I said, there's core applications that everyone's familiar with, ones I've just mentioned, but Microsoft has been introducing increased features and other applications that now form part of that suite. The reason why a lot of businesses find it the right choice for them is because, as I said, we've been using it for a long time. It's been around for a long time, the Office applications in particular. But where we find ourselves now, and a lot of organizations do, is their staff are very comfortable with Word, PowerPoint, Excel, Outlook, OneDrive, those kind of things. But the new features, the new applications that are now bundled in Microsoft 365, they've actually got access to them, but they're kind of either not looked at them at all, or they have looked at them and gone, oh, I wonder what all this is, and it's all a bit new. So it is a brilliant suite of applications for businesses. It kind of, if you've been using Office for a while, it kind of makes sense to continue and actually explore some of the new features, the new functionality that 365 can offer. And it kind of takes it to a completely new level now. There's things that you can do with 365 that you may not have been able to do in years gone by with just the core Office applications. So it's a very good suite. And if you're familiar with that kind of Microsoft functionality, Microsoft look and feel, then it's not much of a jump really to start using some of the other applications and get them going.
Okay, so I mean, fundamental question: why might a small business consider migrating from Google Apps, for instance, to Microsoft 365 and SharePoint?
Well, that's a great question, and I'm not going to dive into the specific differences between Google Workspace, as it's called now, and Microsoft, because that's actually the subject of our webinar next week. So if you are interested in what they both provide, how they compare, what the fundamental differences are, and what might be right for your organization, then please join us next week. We're going to take a proper dive into both of those. Now, as you alluded to in our marketing presentation, we are technology independent, and that might sound quite strange from someone who's got Microsoft in their job title. But there's no right or wrong answer here. Microsoft 365 and Google Workspace offer some similarities, but there are some quite fundamental differences. And the decision to move from one to the other, as we did, is really an internal decision for your business. It's really what you're hoping to get out of those applications, how you might want to use them, seeing what they can do and what might work for you. So I'd be loath to push one over the other. We made the decision internally because we felt it was right for us. some organizations may be quite happy to stick with Google, or may even consider Google as a new option. And like I said, we will look at that next week in a lot more detail. But if Microsoft, when you look at the comparison, Microsoft does offer some things that Google doesn't, and that's not a slight on Google, that's just a fact at the moment. So you may look at it and think, actually there's features there that we need, and we can't get them from what we've got, so we can move over. Now, luckily, it's quite easy to transition from Google to Microsoft and vice versa. So it's quite easy to move your files, folders, data, migrate email accounts, things like that. So, as I said, I mean, fundamentally, it's an internal business decision. If Microsoft's offering something that Google isn't, and that's what your organization needs, then that would make the decision for you to move over. And obviously, Alberon can assist with that. If you wanted to reach out to us, we can easily facilitate that.
Perfect. Okay. So, I mean, in terms of collaboration, could you give us an idea of how SharePoint, for instance, can enhance teamwork and document management?
Yeah. So SharePoint, when people ask what is SharePoint, it's a number of things. It is a very good, excellent document management system, and you can take your traditional folder structure from wherever that might be hosted, whether it's on a file server or another product. But what SharePoint allows you to do is add additional features to that document management system, particularly things around sort of version control, metadata, sensitivity and retention, automation is a really big one. And what you can do is turn it into an intelligent document management system, which is maybe not something you've been able to do before, and you can actually do an awful lot more with the data that you hold. Some clients we've worked with have used SharePoint exclusively as a document management system. That's what they want. So they've been able to set it up in that way so that they can make use of custom views, of automation, and said metadata, things like that, and really turn it into a really smart document management system that works for them. But it can be more than that. It's also a collaborative workspace, and the whole ethos around it is it's called SharePoint, the clues in the title. So you sharing information, you're making information easily accessible to people. You can highlight key data, key stuff that your team works on, needs, and it's all about improving that collaboration and efficiency, taking the pain out of some manual tasks, putting information front and center so that people aren't having to trawl through huge folder structures to look for stuff. And it encourages that. It provides a lot of features that really promotes teamwork and collaboration. Just one example off the top of my head with the Office applications that we've mentioned, all of them have all the applications in 365 are accessible through a web browser. So they have an online version, which is completely set up for collaborative work. So, for example, you could have 15 people in a team updating a spreadsheet at the same time, and able to send comments to each other and chat while they're doing it, which is really good. If we stretch that even further to Microsoft Teams, which a lot of organizations are familiar with, was rushed out probably in a lot of companies because there was a real need in the pandemic. But most people are starting to realize now that it's more than just a chat video call tool, but actually you can collaborate on documents directly with Teams, and there's a direct correlation with SharePoint. So once you get used to these features and the way things talk to each other, the way things sync, the way you can share it around, that whole platform becomes a brilliant collaboration tool, and it can actually promote sort of collaborative working and information sharing.
And as I understand it, in terms of security permissions, a lot of that can be managed from within Teams? Yeah,
that's right. So, and I'm thinking when you said Teams, you meant Microsoft Teams and not Teams as in a business team, but we'll play both. So, a key a key idea around 365, and this isn't exclusive to 365 by any means, but most of the technology companies have gone this way now, is it's about empowering the end user, empowering teams to take responsibility for their own information, the way they work, the way they use stuff, and kind of break that heavy reliance that we traditionally had on in-house IT teams or IT support functions. Now, that isn't the death of the IT team. There's a huge amount of stuff that goes on in the background in 365 that is very specialist work that IT teams would kind of migrate to and start managing. That's actually one of the key differences between 365 and Google Workspace, for example, which we'll look at next week. But it is, yeah, it allows teams to manage their own data, to decide what works best for them. And permissions and access is a big one. It's something our clients bring up all the time. There's a bit of trepidation when you move to a new system about, will we lose control? You know, we've historically had quite strict permissions, and how does this work in 365? It is relatively straightforward to manage permissions and access in 365, and it's designed to be managed by the team rather than sort of reaching out to help desks or IT specialists. The way we kind of advise clients, and obviously it's not a one size fits all, but once your 365 environment is set up, you can manage individual user permissions within Microsoft Teams very, very simply. And we recommend that individual users are managed in Teams, but at SharePoint, permissions are managed at the group level. It's very straightforward. It's very easy to keep on top of. It's a really important part of any discovery phase when we go through with new clients. And they're on the whole, they've been quite impressed about how simple it is to manage and how easy it is for them to manage. And stay on top of it. So yeah, it's a really good feature that teams can actually take responsibility for their own areas. So yeah, definitely a selling point.
Excellent. And so with, for instance, using Microsoft SharePoint, you know, many customers, their end users will be used to a traditional file structure and folder structure. How does, could you detail sort of the SharePoint's metadata and content organization features that, some companies will be a bit worried about changing folder structures and confusing their end users, but if you can talk in a bit more detail about the metadata and how you can structure SharePoint using metadata and the benefits of using metadata.
Okay, so I think the best thing to do would be to jump in on a SharePoint site for this. So can you see the Alberon demo?
Yep.
Brilliant. So you're absolutely right. A lot of organizations are used to what we call traditional folder structure. That's normally how it's set up on a file server, or even in some sort of other third-party applications like Dropbox, for example. Now, it's really important. I'll take you through to a test document library we have. If it loads up. Now, from this, you can see you can replicate your existing folder structure in SharePoint. It'll look exactly the same. So if you've got a load of folders, I mean, see, there's only 2 there, but imagine if we had more. If that's how you've got your file set up, you can absolutely retain that when you move to SharePoint. There is nothing stopping you keeping your folder structure exactly the same. The only difference would be that you'd be accessing those folders through your web browser into SharePoint, as opposed to going onto your desktop or into your file explorer. But visually and how it works is exactly the same. Now, as an organization, we try and introduce the idea of metadata, and actually for some of our clients we've gone folderless. We've actually removed that folder structure. Now there's reasons for doing that, and it's a lot of it's to do around because these files and folders now within SharePoint are now hosted online. they all have a URL. Now, the URL is based on obviously the name of the document. So as you can imagine, the more folders you've got, the deeper the folder structure, the longer the name is. And Microsoft does have a limit on the number of characters within a file name. And when it gets over that limit, you can have issues. So we would actually recommend, if you're going to continue using folders, which is absolutely your choice, we wouldn't advise having a folder structure deeper than 3 folders. So you would have a top level folder and 2 subfolders within that, if that makes sense. But you can absolutely keep that if that's what you want. Now, some organizations do get the idea of metadata quite quickly, but they want to actually manage the transition going in, because for some people, moving to something like Microsoft 365 is actually quite a big undertaking for their organization, and they need to manage that sort of anxiety and that change. So being able to keep their existing folder structure actually provides a level of reassurance to their staff when they sort of access SharePoint for the first time and they see that within their document libraries it looks exactly as it did in File Explorer. They kind of relax a bit, and it's not too painful. And then over time, they may try and move away from folders and create a folderless structure. Now, that's not for everybody, but it's something we can certainly provide guidance and a demonstration on and show you the benefits of that. Now, when it comes to metadata, metadata is basically information about information. So, for example, within a document library, as you can see, you've got different columns. Now, when you create a document library from scratch, I think there's 4 that come up, which is the type of document it is. As you can see, you've got the different icons, the name of the document or folder, which is obviously crucial. And then I believe it has who last modified it and when they modified it. But you've got the option here to add additional columns. Now, some of them are included out of the box in SharePoint, and it shows different information. As you can see some examples here, we've got version number, file size, these are all included. But you've got the option to create your own columns. And if you add a new column, as you can see, you've got different options here. Everything from dates and times, choices, hyperlinks, currencies, actual real-time locations. So there's all sorts of information that you can choose to display about your files and folders, depending on the data that's held in there, what your business does. You know, this is not a one-size-fits-all. This is really unique to your organization. But choice columns are quite useful to set up meta. So for metadata, basically, what you would have is a glossary of keywords. Now, this will vary from firm to firm. It could be anything from product names, it could be customer names, it could be specific locations, you know, anything, whatever is applicable to your business. And then you can create choice columns and populate them with these keywords. And what that will allow your teams to do is tag folders and files with these key terms. You can have more than one metadata column, so you can create as many as you need. And what this does, once you start tagging your information with these keywords, you can actually use that metadata to search and index your files. SharePoint has built-in search function, as you can see at the top, and it's also got some really powerful filter functions as well. And the more metadata you apply to your documents and folders, the smarter that search and filter functions become. And that's what allows you to move away from folders. So to search for a document, you can search by keywords. So for example, if we had a metadata column that had a product name and your organization produces 3 main products, you could tag files with whatever product names applicable to that file or folder. And then you can filter on product names, so it will quickly eliminate anything within that document library and narrow it down to the product name that you've selected. So this is just one way of turning what was just sort of static folders that you may have been familiar with in File Explorer, and actually start creating a more intelligent document management system that allows you to filter on key terms. And it's, as I said, the more effort you put into this at the beginning, the more powerful these search and filter functions become. And we've got 2 clients that I can think of off the top of my head that have really bought into this, and it's paid absolute dividends for them. I mean, they've got document libraries with thousands and thousands of documents in, but it takes seconds for their staff to filter and actually index in on a specific file rather than having to trawl through numerous folders to try and get it. So like I said, that we kind of see that as the gold standard, but we know every organization is different. Every organization has a different appetite for change. So although you can do all this real clever stuff with in part of any kind of setup, this can be phased in. You can do this in stages. You can retain what you've had previously and sort of give people time to get used to this, and then gradually introduce things. So it really varies organization to organization.
Yeah. So I mean, SharePoint clearly has, you know, a learning curve to it for all organizations. What sort of training and resources are available for businesses to help their teams adapt to a new environment?
Well, firstly, there's people like us who are obviously there to provide consultancy and support, and we work with lots of organisations. Sometimes we're required to manage this entirely on their behalf. Sometimes it's more collaborative. Sometimes we're kind of just there in case things go wrong. You know, that's completely unique, depending on what your needs are. Microsoft has a really good set of resources around not just SharePoint, but a lot of the applications they provide. There's a resource called Microsoft Learn, which has training modules that you can just log into your Microsoft account and just do it in your own time, if that's how you like to learn, and you can kind of teach yourself. There are help functions built into a lot of the applications, and yeah, and there's a huge amount of resources out there. It really depends on how you learn as a team, how you learn as an individual. Everyone's different. Some people like to have a visual demonstration like this. I mean, I could go through some stuff now and people can see it, and that's how they learn. Some people like to dive in themselves and have a proper play. Some people like to sort of see it written down step by step and take it in chunks. One thing I would say that we kind of recommend for our clients, particularly when you start getting into the sort of medium-sized business, and we found this really effective, is when you adopt Microsoft 365 and you're rolling it out from scratch, or if your organization already has it but you're not really getting the most out of it, super user group is a really good idea. And by that I mean ask for volunteers from teams that aren't particularly IT, so other teams around the business, people that want to learn a bit more, want to become more empowered, and actually give that group some more fast-track training and get them to assist you in promoting this, showing what it can do, because we find that some of the best teachers of some of this stuff are people that the business would view as non-technical. It kind of promotes that. It's a more effective way of actually encouraging people to engage with this. And actually, the whole point of these applications is to make your life easier. They're not designed to be obstacles. They're designed to actually improve the way you work, to help you work better as a team, to get better results, particularly around things like business intelligence. About most companies hoover up an awful lot of data, but a lot of them don't necessarily do anything productive with it. But this kind of encourages you now to make use of that data to make smarter business decisions, or actually see what you're doing right, but maybe more importantly, what you're not doing as well. So trying to encourage that culture of this isn't here to make your life difficult. It's completely the opposite. It's here to make your life easier. And people tend to be more receptive to that if it comes from someone that's not considered to be technical IT. You know, sometimes people feel that being imposed on or things being done to them rather than with them. So we find non-technical people who actually learn a bit about this, kind of have that light bulb moment when they can see the difference it can make, and actually they seem to be the best spokespeople to go across the business. But yeah, I mean, there's a huge amount of resources. The other thing I would add is one thing that we do know, and I do know from experience from talking to lots of clients, is there is a real fear with something new about breaking it. Now, pretty much everything in 365 is recoverable very quickly. If mistakes are made, it's not too difficult to rectify that. But another feature we found that a lot of organizations really make use of is creating a standalone SharePoint site, for example, that's not linked to any of the main company sort of areas, which is a space where people can go and play, try things out, without fear, without worrying about damaging live data or anything that's live. So there's lots of different techniques you can use to train staff to promote awareness, increase their sort of skill set. It varies company to company, but there's lots of things we could recommend, and I'm sure there's lots of information out there.
Excellent. So I mean, just wrapping up now. So what advice would you have, James, for businesses considering this a migration journey, or just exploring if they've already got a Microsoft 365 subscription package, exploring are they getting the most out of it? What sort of advice would you give starting that journey off?
Planning is absolutely crucial. We call it a discovery phase where we look at clients, either what their setup is now, where they're hoping to get to. Sometimes it's a case of you don't know what you don't know, so we kind of highlight as much as we can to them, and we work with them to see what would fit them best. But the planning phase is absolutely crucial. Everything from how much data you've got, how you would like that structured, who needs access to it, who is going to take ownership of various different parts of 365, training, how much training do you need, when do you want to do it, whether you want to move lock, stock and barrel quite quickly, or whether you want to phase in this and maybe move teams over, one at a time or a couple at a time. How your organization, what you're currently doing, what's more important is what can't you do at the moment? What's the limitations on your business? Are there things you'd like to be able to do as an organization that your current setup doesn't allow you to do? Or maybe there's a solution within 365 that will do exactly what you want, but you're not aware of it. So all this kind of discovery phase and planning is really, really crucial, because you want the rollout, either if you're trying to increase the adoption, if you've already got 365 and you're trying to get people to use it more and use it more intelligently, or if this is new to you and your organization is moving to this for the first time. But trying to work out what the best way is to roll this out, how quickly or slowly you do that, where you'd like to be down the line, and having these milestones. In a year's time, we would love across the business to be able to do this. We'd like to be, we'd like all of this data so that staff can analyze it, produce reports, or we'd like automation. We've got all these processes that take a huge amount of time, and we want to get rid of that. We want to cut that time down so that our staff can concentrate on what's more important. It's a real business analysis piece, and the more thought you put in and the more effort you put in at the beginning, the smoother this transition will be, and the more quickly your organization will be able to adopt a lot of these new features and new functionalities. And for a lot of organizations, it really does change how they work. It is a technology change for some people. You give them all these shiny new toys, but the real key for this is that it can actually give you the tools and the knowledge to be able to change how you work internally. So it does open up a lot of new possibilities for companies, whatever size, and actually helps you to become more agile, more efficient, get rid of some of that pain. So yeah, that would be my major advice: is get that planning stage right, and that's what we would do. We would always recommend quite a detailed discovery phase.
Excellent. Well, James, thanks so much for your time and answering those questions this morning. I think if anyone has got any further questions based on this webinar this morning, please do send them in to hello@alberon.co.uk. We'd really would happily answer any questions that might have cropped up in your own minds from this webinar this morning. But yeah, James, thanks very much for your time, and we look forward to the next webinar next week.
Brilliant.
Thank you very much.
Thanks
everyone for
everyone.
joining this morning, and we'll hopefully see you again next week.
Thank you.
Bye all.